on government power, first and foremost. Secondly, it affirms our God-given right of self-defense. And that is not something that we're willing to give up. He said liberty is not just a one-way street. You have a right to walk around and not be killed. We've had Obama talk about how it's so easy to get guns. And let me say to the people on the left, many of you understand the futility of the war on drugs. You understand that for 45 years, we've had a war on drugs, and we've had draconian measures of throwing people in jail for a very long time. It has had absolutely no effect. You can still go on school campuses and you can buy drugs very easily. They're readily available. Do you think draconian laws to try to control guns are going to do anything other than make them more lethal, just as they've made drugs more lethal? Of course, they're not going to. And he asks, finally, in his misguided editorial, he says, well, what if there'd been people carrying guns? What if people just started shooting in the dark in every direction? Wouldn't there have been more people killed? No, we've talked about this as well. We've talked about the many different episodes where in less than 3 minutes, somebody goes on a shooting spree and someone with a gun takes them out. Instead of people bleeding out on the floor, dying, waiting 3 hours for the police to make a move. People who were shot early on, many of them would have survived, except they bled out on the floor as the police are waiting outside. Now, at the same time, all this is going on. To pull this all together, you need to understand that we have a filibuster that's going on today by Democrats in the Senate. Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut has launched a filibuster on the Senate floor, arguing that he wants, guess what? Suspected terrorists to be barred from purchasing firearms. You see where this is all going? All of these threads are pulling together. And what they're going to do is they're going to take a star chamber process and use that to block purchases. We should all be very afraid of these watch lists. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Now, we've been told by Imam Obama that these people, that's the man who did this in Orlando, was a homegrown terrorist. And of course, the greatest threat to us are homegrown terrorists. Is this really true, Leanne?
Well, a lot of people are trying to make that claim, especially with Donald Trump's national security speech, saying, you know, he was a New Yorker, this was a native ideology here, but we're going to take a closer look and see that this was actually an imported ideology.
That's right.
Now, he was, of course, one of these people radicalized online, in addition to what he was getting taught at home by his father, who is from Afghanistan. We'll get into him a little bit later. But last night, the radical Muslim cleric who is connected to the Orlando terrorists, he had an interview with Greta Van Susteren. It was very eye-opening and very interesting peek into a lauded Islamic scholar. So this is someone who travels around the world, goes to universities, and speaks about his version of Islam. So this is one of the clips that's really making the round today, making all the headlines. What he had to say about a Hillary Clinton presidency.
Hillary Clinton, as a Muslim, I object to Hillary Clinton. No, I don't believe a woman should be the president of a nation. As our Prophet ﷺ, he taught us that whenever a woman is in charge, there's going to be problems. What if she's on her menses and it's time to go to war? She's going to press the button because she's angry? You know? I don't believe that she should be put in that position. You know, we're still debating whether a woman should be in the battlefield with men, and we're going to make a woman the president?
Well, it's a good thing he didn't say that to Megyn Kelly.
Yeah, exactly. And so obviously, you know, just your basic science, I'm pretty sure Hillary Clinton is a little bit too old to be having her period. But I mean, what century is this? Should we just send her into the middle of the woods with the other women on their moon cycle? But then he goes on to talk about stoning women to death. And is this an appropriate rebuke for people who are committing adultery?
No, I do not condemn that.
Why not?
Do you condemn someone getting to electric chair for whatever crime they get the electric chair for?
So you think adultery for a woman is a death penalty offense?
Not just a woman. Why do you want to specify a woman?
Because because I see the women being stoned to death and I don't see the men. Are they stoning the men to death?
Well,
are they?
I don't know. What I condemn is the concept that stoning is an inappropriate punishment for adultery, because we find in the Quran and in the Sunnah that we stone for a person who is an adulterer.
So, you know, I have to applaud Greta because she just sat there and allowed him to speak and reveal a Muslim ideology.
Yeah.
Okay, this is
right.
Moderate, and 99% of Muslims in Afghanistan, they agree with Sharia law.
Like the video that we had up on the Paul Joseph Watson that we played earlier today, and like our guest also said, where he disagrees with Donald Trump is the term radical Islam. Mm-hmm. This is what characterizes mainstream Islam.
Well, and you know, he's probably golf buddies with Obama because he sort of had the same response when Greta asked him about journalists being beheaded by ISIS.
So when they behead James Foley, a journalist, your thought is what?
I believe some journalists need to be beheaded, but I wouldn't have done that.
You believe
Okay.
some journalists need to be beheaded?
I only say that facetiously.
Okay.
In that, in a
So
way.
how can you in any way justify ISIS?
I'm not justifying.
Okay.
I'm not justifying. I was just stating that, you know, no, I don't justify any of their activities, and no, I don't think that.
So shouldn't we stop them?
No.
So he walks it back a little bit, but he's obviously not saying it facetiously. He just knows this is Takia. This is that.
Just joking.
They know that if they're going to be facing prosecution, they are allowed to lie to the infidel. They can lie to us. And he says he doesn't think it's right that the United States should be trying to stop ISIS. No, he doesn't. And then that she also asked him, you know, about Mateen's association with the American suicide bomber. And he says, well, I personally don't believe that all of those guys are suicide bombing. So, I mean, this is someone who is making excuses. But let's take a look. Who is this guy? So he was just released from prison last year. He was a former U.S. Marine, discharged in 1990. He was disenchanted with the military. So what does he do? Immediately becomes a leader of a gang. And so the gang robbed more than 10 banks, private homes, post offices at gunpoint, shot 3 police officers, and attacked 1 cop after he was injured by a homemade pipe bomb. And then he was arrested in 1991. So in 1 year, after disenchanted with how bad the military is, he becomes this gang leader. And then so prosecutors cut a deal with him that he only had to serve 4 years in prison, but he had to work undercover for the FBI between 2004 and 2007, documenting terrorist plans and networks in Africa, Egypt, and the U.S. So he goes undercover, and now he's running a Muslim extremist Islamic school. So he basically goes to these places and gets even more radicalized.
Timbuktu Academy.
Yeah, he was able to convert 36 other people while he was in jail, you know, converted them to his teachings. And so, like I said earlier, he travels the world, going to universities, some of them here in the United States. And he also has ties to the 1993 World Trade Center bombing. He was the bodyguard for Sheikh Omar Abdel Rahman. So, I mean,
We've seen this a lot. Yeah, and that's the thing is, like, does this characterize Islam? Well, you know, Muslims need to speak out about it. They need to say, they need to disassociate themselves from that. We've seen some Christians who have been accused of supporting this, and we've seen some very hateful things from some individual pastors. I want to take a look at that real quickly. We've had one Baptist pastor who's spoke back against this. We had Carl Gallups. He said he reacted with outrage. This is a WND story. By attempts by the ACLU staffers to pin the blame on the massacre of homosexuals on Christians. He says the idea of somehow celebrating or condoning this violence, says this Baptist pastor, nothing could be further from the truth. Nothing could be more disgusting for me to contemplate. This is an insult to all Christians. He says, I am not a hater of people. I don't think other Christians are as well. Speaking for myself, I've dedicated 40 years of my adult life to serving, ministering to the deep needs of people of all races, sexual preferences, and religious preferences. At the same time, we see another couple of pastors who've gotten a lot of press. Pastor Roger Jimenez of the Verity Baptist Church in Sacramento says that Orlando is now safer. He says, are you sad that 50 pedophiles were killed today? He said, no, I think that's great. I think it helps society. I think Orlando, Florida is a little safer tonight. Another pastor, Tempe, Arizona, Stephen Anderson, said there are 50 less pedophiles in this world, also from another Baptist church. Now, people need to understand there's probably as many different flavors of Baptist churches as there are variations of Islam, okay? This guy said, Stephen Anderson,
extremism.
yeah, he said LGBT people should be executed by a righteous government. That's the only problem that he had with it. And so, you know, when I look at this, I have to say that this is not Christianity. I have to speak out. I'm a Christian. I don't want people who are not Christians to think that this is what Christianity is about. I don't want Christians to be fooled by some of these false teachers to think that that's what Christianity is about. Seriously, folks, where do you think, what would Jesus have done? You know, we've got these little things you find at the Baptist bookstores, WWJD. What would Jesus do? Thinking about what would Jesus do in this situation or that situation? What would Jesus do at a gay bar that was where there was shooting going on? Would he even be at a gay bar I think yes. He was accused by the Pharisees of being in the company with sinners, prostitutes, publicans, tax collectors. That's really bad people. He was accused of that, and he didn't deny it. He said he came to this world to save sinners. He didn't come here to tell Christians that your duty on earth is to kill people who are sinners. No, Jesus came to die for sinners. That's Christianity. That's what we need to understand. That's the difference between people who are willing to die for what they witnessed, that's what martyr really originally meant, versus people who want to kill others and are willing to die to kill people who they think are doing something wrong. That's the difference, and we need to make that clear in all religions.
Yeah, that's good for you to make that point.
All right, we're going to be right back. Stay with us.
Because they're beheading people, beheading Americans?
Okay, don't we have our own problems here?
Yeah, we got problems here, but
okay,
I mean,
so is it our business?
Well, apparently some of those problems are being imported here.
Only because I think that because we feed into this and we grow it here.
Jakari Jackson out here at the Trump event in Atlanta, Georgia, outside the Fox Theater. What you can see behind me is what remains of the demonstrators. Obviously, the thing's over now. It's raining horribly. The rally started off rather peaceful, pretty much benign. I talked to a few people, saw some arguments, put those up. But by and large, it was pretty peaceful until I guess maybe an hour or so before the event actually ended. And then the Trump supporters started to trickle out. When they came out, they encountered the anti-Trump demonstrators. Now, every time a fight happened, I wasn't right there. I had to run up to it, so I can't say who started what. But it's over now. And like I said, the crowd has greatly dissipated, so I'll probably get out of here pretty soon, soaking wet, and bring you more reports on INFOWARS.com.
1 week from tomorrow, Britain will vote as to whether or not they will leave the European Union, the Brexit vote. Now, this is a vote that is not important only for England or Britain. This is a vote that is important for the entire world because this is a referendum on global governance. You have to understand the European Union is part of the transitional plan to global governance. And as the globalists are moving with these trans-Pacific and transatlantic partnerships to join North America to Europe, to join North America to Asia, to create a global trading bloc as part of the transitional process to world governance, because after economic union comes political union, as they're moving to the next level, it could possibly be unraveling from the very bottom. That's what could happen if Britain were to leave. And of course, the reasons behind this are the hardships brought on by open borders, by immigration, as well as by the impending automation. Pressures are going to build even more once automation really starts to kick in. But it's really the economic issues and the immigration issues that we're seeing. Now, an important development has been happening in the last week. We've seen a massive shift in the polls in terms of people supporting Britain leaving. And we've had the largest circulation paper in the UK, The Sun, come out with an editorial yesterday. They said, we are about to make the biggest political decision of our lives, and The Sun urges everyone to vote leave. We must set ourselves free from dictatorial Brussels. And they go on to say, our 43-year membership in the European Union has proved increasingly greedy. The European Union has proved greedy, wasteful, bullying, and breathtakingly incompetent in crisis. They say outside the EU, we can become richer, safer, and free at long last to forge our own destiny as America, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and many other great democracies already do. And of course, that's the issue. Will we continue to consolidate power? That is an issue of individual liberty. We see as power is taken away from the individual and given to the state. Even at local government, we are diminished as individuals. And then it goes from the local government to the community, to the state level, to the national level. Once it goes to the global level, we are going to have very little freedom. We're not going to have any control over even our national economy at that point. And that's what we're seeing from these trade deals, which are the next step. So this is the way to stop this. It's very interesting. They go on to say in their editorial, staying in will be far worse for immigration. It'll be far worse for jobs. It'll be worse for wages, worse for our way of life. Greece is bankrupt. Italy is in danger of going the same way. In Spain, 45% of those under 25 are out of work. And to back that up, take a look at this article here. Spain's public debt has now surpassed 100% in a 20-year high. Spain's public debt rose over the 100% level in the first quarter to